My daughter's husband decided I was a harmless old man who noticed nothing and forgot the rest. Ethan liked to drift down the hall when he thought I was asleep, easing my door, poking through drawers as if the house were a pawn shop and I was the dozing owner. But that night, when he slid open the top drawer to fish out the key to my safe, his face went white as chalk and then the queasy yellow of an egg yolk. What he saw there changed the course of his life. Me? I smiled into the dark. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. My fork paused halfway to my mouth when Ethan's voice cut clean through our easy dinner talk. So James, that safe upstairs, what kind of lock does it have? Maya nearly choked on her water. Ethan, what kind of question is that? He wasn't looking at her. He watched me, waiting. Something predatory hid behind courteous teeth, and it tightened my chest. I set down my fork, buying time. Just curious about home security, he went on, that practiced smile spreading. You know, with all the break-ins around here lately. What break-ins? I asked. I'd lived in Park Hill, Denver, 15 years. The noisiest emergency we'd had was Mr. Ramirez's kite strangling his maple last month. Ethan flicked his hand like a man sending away flies. You probably don't hear about them. They keep it quiet to avoid panic. He leaned forward, elbows on my dining table. Still, a man your age, living alone in a house this size, must have serious systems. Maya shifted. Dad's always careful about locking up. Right, but what about insurance? Ethan's voice pressed in. If something happened to you, God forbid, Maya would need to know where everything important is, wouldn't she? The room suddenly felt smaller. I watched his face, noting how his pupils swelled when he mentioned my hypothetical demise, how his fingers drummed when I refused to fill the pause. Everything's organized, I said finally. Maya knows what she needs to know. But does she know about the key? The question hung in the air like smoke. Maya looked between us, confusion knotted on her brow. What key? Ethan's smile widened. The one in your bedroom drawer. The one that... How do you know about any key in my bedroom? My words came out sharper than I planned. For a breath, his mask slipped, something cold flashing across his face before the dutiful son-in-law returned. I was hunting aspirin last week, he said smoothly. Migraine. Maya told me to check your bathroom cabinet, but I opened the wrong drawer first. Sorry, didn't mean to invade. Maya nodded. I remember that headache. You were really suffering. I remembered too. He'd been upstairs almost 30 minutes after dinner, claiming stomach trouble, long enough to do more than fumble for aspirin. The aspirin's in the medicine cabinet, I said quietly. Always has been. A small muscle jumped in his jaw. Must have been out of it from the pain. The conversation limped along after that, but Ethan kept circling back. Soft questions about my bank, about who else had keys, about my routines. Each query felt like fingers prodding a bruise, testing for weak spots. When dinner finally ended, Maya jumped up to clear the dishes. I'll handle cleanup tonight, Dad. You cooked. I don't mind, I said, already stacking plates. It's my ritual, the way I file a day back into order. Tonight I needed the rhythm more than usual. Come on, babe, Ethan said, his hand already on her shoulder. Let your dad do his kitchen magic. We should get some rest. They disappeared down the hall, and a minute later I heard their door close. As I scrubbed the plates, I kept replaying his questions, the way he knew about a key he should not have known existed, the casual mention of my death and Maya's inheritance. My hands moved automatically, wash, rinse, dry, while my mind cataloged the red flags I'd let slide these past 3 weeks. An unemployment story that never quite balanced, his constant appetite for financial details, the way he studied my house like he was memorizing exits. I dried the last glass and hung the towel on its hook. The kitchen shone beneath the light, restored to order. But downstairs, calm didn't reach the rest of the house. Something basic had shifted. The place felt exposed. Even the clock seemed louder, each tick a reminder that my home had been studied like a map by unwelcome hands. Upstairs, I heard muffled voices, then quiet. Time to see what surprises my own home had prepared for me. The first thing I noticed was my bedroom door. It stood a sliver open, 2 inches of darkness showing where there should have been none. I stopped at the top stair, hand tight on the banister. I'd close that door before dinner. I always close it. 40 years living alone will solder habits to a man, broken recently only because my daughter had moved back for a bit. But Ethan and Maya were in the guest room down the hall. I stood for 30 seconds, listening. No sound from the guest room, no step anywhere. Just the careful settling of an old house and the drum of my own pulse. I nudged the door inward, half expecting a rusty groan. None. I oil hinges. But stepping into my private space felt like walking into a crime scene. At first glance, nothing was wrong. The bed was made, corners tight. My reading glasses sat on the nightstand. The lamp was angled the same. But decades of methodical living trained the eye, and the wrong notes sounded at once. The closet door was open exactly 4 inches. I always shut it flush. The gap would itch at me all night. My dresser drawers weren't perfectly seated. The second drawer from the top, the one that holds important papers, sat a hair proud. A corner of a manila folder peeked out like a yellow tongue. My stomach clenched. I slid the drawer fully open. Inside, the folders had been shuffled, not chaos, but not precise either. Insurance papers were tucked into bank statements. My will, usually at the very back, had migrated toward the front, and the small brass key I kept taped beneath the drawer lip was gone. I checked twice, fingertips trailing along the wood where the tape should have been. Nothing. That key worked the manual override for my safe, the same safe Ethan had asked about so casually over dinner. My hands began to shake, not with fear, but with anger. This wasn't random. Someone had stepped into a private sanctuary and searched it like a technician. Someone who knew what to look for and where to look. I turned to the closet. The safe, compact, heavy, bolted into studs, blinked its little digital eye as if nothing had changed. But the keypad code didn't matter anymore. Ethan had the override. Standing there, surrounded by a lifetime of cleanly labeled boxes, I felt peeled. How long had he been planning this? How many times had he padded in here while Maya and I sat downstairs, running his hands over my life the way a shopper thumbs through shirts? The trespass went deeper than theft. It was intimate. Someone had seen my records, touched papers meant for no one else. The careful edges I'd built around my days had been crossed like a line drawn in dust. But Ethan had made a crucial mistake. He assumed I wouldn't notice. He took me for the standard issue old man, trusting, tired, trailing details behind me like loose thread. He was wrong. I eased the drawer back into place, leaving everything exactly as I'd found it, mistakes included. If Ethan believed he was invisible, I wanted him to keep believing it. Let him think he hadn't tripped a single wire. Let him proceed with whatever plan he'd been hatching. Because now I knew what I was dealing with. This wasn't about unemployment or a temporary squeeze. This was theft, premeditated, calculated, by someone who'd spent weeks studying my schedule and my vulnerabilities. Someone sleeping down the hall with my daughter. I switched off the light and moved through my nighttime routine. Teeth, face, alarm, exactly as always. Yet each small act felt performed for an unseen audience. Was Ethan listening? Did he suspect I'd discovered his search? As I pulled back the covers, one thought settled and would not move. Tomorrow I would begin gathering evidence. Tonight I would lie awake and plan. The house ticked and sighed as it always does. A settling joist, the faint rattle of a vent, a branch scritching glass. I lay still and counted the spaces between sounds until my heartbeat slowed. Somewhere down the hall a board whispered beneath cautious weight, then went quiet again. I kept my breathing even and my eyes on the dark. Plans lined up like chess pieces in my head. Quiet ones, simple ones, the kind that look like routine until the moment they don't. Whatever Ethan believed, the game had already started. But first, I needed to know exactly what I was up against. Sleep was impossible. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the evening. At 11:47 p.m., according to my bedside clock, I heard movement downstairs. Footsteps crossed the living room. Not Maya's light step, something heavier, deliberate. Ethan. I stayed still, slowing my breathing. The sounds moved toward the front of the house. Then, faint through the old floors, came his voice. "Yeah, it's me. Everyone's asleep." A phone call. I rose carefully, avoiding a mattress creak, and knelt by the heat vent that links my room to the living room. "The old man's definitely loaded," Ethan said, clearer now. "I found bank statements, investment portfolios, the whole spread." My blood ran cold. "We're talking," I thought. He wasn't alone. "Tomorrow night," he continued. "Maya's at her book club, 7 to 9. Perfect window." I slid my phone from the nightstand and opened the voice recorder. Whatever came next, I needed proof. "I already have the safe key," he bragged. "Grabbed it during dinner. He keeps everything in there. Cash, jewelry, probably more account info." I hit record as his tone turned cocky. "Look, I know you're worried about the timeline, but my gambling debt isn't going away. Those guys aren't patient. This has to happen now." Gambling. That explained the hollow eyes, the jumpy energy, the practiced charm. He wasn't merely opportunistic, he was cornered. "James is just some lonely widower," he sneered. "He has no idea what's coming. He even asked me about home security at dinner, practically handed me what I needed." Rage rose, but I kept silent and kept recording. "The beauty is, he'll never suspect family," Ethan went on. "If he notices anything, Maya will convince him he misplaced it. You know how old people get about memory." Old people. I'm 66, not 96, and my memory was engraving every word. "Trust me, by Thursday we'll be clear," he said. "I'll tell Maya I got a job offer out of state. We'll be gone before he knows what hit him." He paused, then laughed, an oily sound that made my skin crawl. Maybe he should have been more careful who he let in. Life lesson. The call ended. He moved around for another minute, checking windows maybe, then climbed the stairs. I stopped the recording, slid the phone under my pillow, and watched the doorway. I'd left it barely ajar after his earlier search, unwilling to signal I'd noticed. His shadow passed, the guest room door opened and closed. For a long while I lay in the dark, processing. Ethan had debts serious enough to involve dangerous men. He had an accomplice. He planned to rob me tomorrow night during Maya's book club and disappear immediately after, dragging my daughter into whatever mess he'd made. He wasn't just stealing from me, he was using Maya as camouflage. But he'd made one critical mistake. He assumed I was helpless. He didn't know I'd spent 30 years as an insurance investigator, trading notes with detectives and interviewing people who thought they were smarter than the rules. If Ethan wanted a contest, he'd get one. With his confession saved on my phone, my mind backed up to where this began, 3 weeks earlier when Maya's call fractured a Tuesday. I was working the crossword when her name lit my screen. Her voice sounded tight, frightened. "Dad, I know it's early, but—" She stopped. "Ethan lost his job last month. We've been trying, but we're behind on the mortgage." "How far?" I asked, reaching for my checkbook. 3 months? I hate to ask, but could we maybe stay with you for a while? Just until he finds something new?" The relief in her voice when I said yes hit me. My little girl, 32 and too proud to ask till she had no choice. Of course they could come home. Yet even then, something in Ethan's story snagged. He'd been at his company 8 years, Maya said. Solid reviews, layoffs, without warning. When I pressed for details, her answers were hazy. "Ethan handles the finances," she said. "He's managing the job search." She trusted him to sort it out. I should have asked for paperwork. 3 days later, they arrived with a rented truck and far too many boxes for a temporary stay. Maya hugged me on the porch till my ribs protested. Ethan trailed behind carrying a garment bag and a grin. He thanked me 3 times, each thank you landing like a salesman's handshake, warm, practiced, empty. I carried boxes, showed them the guest room, made up the bed, and cooked dinner. Ethan talked about his field, a cloud of jargon that never condensed. When I asked what exactly his last role was, he listed responsibilities without outcomes, work without proof. The first week, I told myself to extend grace. But generosity has a rhythm, and his timing was wrong. He stayed up late networking, yet whenever I passed the den, he was glued to his phone, thumbing a betting app he swiped away a beat too late. During the day, while Maya worked remote from my kitchen table, he ran errands that took hours and produced no groceries, no applications, no interviews, only fresh scratch-off tickets peeking from his pocket like little paper flags. I wanted to believe Maya when she said he was applying everywhere. I wanted to believe the man she married was enduring a rough patch, not dragging a storm behind him. But quiet things tell their own truth. The way he studied the layout of my house, how his questions sharpened, the restless hum that clung to him like old smoke. Now the background noise had a name and a date. Tomorrow he would try my safe, take what he could carry, and vanish. And he would use Maya's routine as his alibi. My plan formed in plain steps, because plain steps leave no seams. I wouldn't confront him tonight or force Maya to choose. In the morning, I'd make 2 calls, one to a detective friend from the old days, another to my banker. I'd also move a few things, quietly, and make sure the safe's contents wouldn't match what Ethan expected. Finally, I'd leave the house exactly as he left it. The drawer slightly proud, the closet gapped 4 inches, the bedroom door ajar. Let him believe nothing had changed. Near midnight, the house exhaled. I lay back and let the anger drain until only resolve remained. He thought age makes you dull. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought wrong. Tears in her eyes, whispering thank you again and again. But Ethan was different, cooler. His handshake was firm but brief, his eyes already sweeping my place with the kind of appraisal that should have set off sirens. "Nice place, James," he said, strolling through my living room like an agent prepping a listing. "Must be worth quite a bit in today's market." Back then, I chalked it up to curiosity. Now I know it for what it was: calculation. During their first week, I did everything to make them comfortable. Cleared space in the guest closet, shifted my routines to fit 3 people instead of 1. Maya slid back into the house like she'd never left. She knows the rhythm of these rooms. Ethan, though, kept a steady parade of questions. The neighborhood watch schedule, which neighbors were home during the day, my banking habits, shopping routines, whether I kept cash in the house. On the surface, they could pass for innocent questions from someone settling in. They weren't innocent at all. I remember the morning he offered to drive me to the bank. "Save you the trip," he said. "I need to update my address with unemployment anyway." At the branch, he lingered half a step behind me at the teller window, eyes flicking to the screen like a hummingbird. He made breezy comments about account types and safe deposit boxes. Red flags I ignored because I wanted to trust my daughter's husband, because Maya loved him and I love Maya. The gambling should have been obvious too. Ethan's phone buzzed constantly with calls he always took in private, stepping outside or into another room. He said they were employers and networking contacts. But his mood after those calls was its own weather system, shoulders wired, jaw set, pacing arcs into my rug. And the mail told an uglier story. Envelopes addressed to Ethan piling up on my table. Credit cards, collection agencies, final notice, stamped in merciless red. I assumed they were routine address updates after the layoff. Now I understand they were dunning letters, threats. Maya knew none of it. She trusted Ethan completely, took his explanations at face value. When he said he was handling their finances, she believed him. When he said the job market was brutal, but he had prospects, she supported him. She had no idea her husband was drowning in gambling debt, no clue her childhood home was being cased like a target. My generous, trusting daughter had become cover for a theft. That thought snapped me back to the present. My dark bedroom, the glow of my phone, and Ethan's own words recorded minutes after midnight. In 12 hours, he planned to rob me. In 36, he intended to vanish with Maya, dragging her into the undertow of his lies. But he'd misread the terrain. He assumed I was a grateful old man, easy to fool. I wasn't lonely. I was careful, observant, and I had 3 decades of experience reading people who thought they were the smartest person in the room. He wanted to take from me. Fine. Let him try. I woke at 6:30, same as always. The recording felt like a nightmare artifact, but the timestamp didn't lie. 12:47 a.m., Ethan's voice clear as day. Downstairs, I started the coffee maker and began my usual breakfast ritual. Eggs, toast, orange juice. Everything exactly as it had been for the past 3 weeks. Maya patted in wearing her robe, yawning and grateful. I smiled. "Morning, kiddo. Sleep all right?" "Like a baby. Thanks again for letting us stay, Dad." Ethan arrived 20 minutes later, hair damp from the shower, rested and confident. A man with a plan. "Beautiful morning," he said, settling into his chair. "What's everyone got going today?" I set his coffee down carefully. "Oh, the usual. Might run some errands later." His eyes sharpened a notch. "What kind of errands?" "Odds and ends, hardware store, maybe the bank." A small muscle twitched beneath his left eye. "Nothing exciting." "The bank?" he said, leaning in. "Everything okay?" Maya laughed. "Dad loves checking things in person. Old habits." "Not paranoid," I said mildly. "Careful. You can't be too careful these days." Ethan nodded a little too eagerly. "Absolutely. Identity theft, scams. It's a jungle for someone your age." There it was again. That soft insult wrapped in concern. "Speaking of careful," he continued, "I've been thinking about your home security. This neighborhood seems quiet, but you never know." "It's perfectly safe," Maya said. "Dad's been here 15 years without a problem." He barely heard her. His eyes never left me. "Still, a man living alone, valuable things in the house. It pays to be prepared. You mentioned that safe upstairs. Is that where you keep important documents?" I sipped my coffee. "Some things, yes." "What about cash?" he asked, casual as weather. "If banks went down or there was some emergency, it's smart to keep a cushion on hand." The audacity was something to behold. Sitting at my table, eating food I'd made, asking me to inventory my assets for his convenience. "I have what I need," I said simply. He pivoted. "You mentioned being a heavy sleeper last week. That's good. Rest is important. I worry about older folks who don't sleep well." I had mentioned no such thing, but I nodded. "Oh yes, once I'm out, I'm dead to the world, especially lately. I've been so tired in the evenings." "That's normal at your age," Ethan said. "Your body needs more rest." Maya shot him a look. "Ethan?" "No, he's right," I said quickly. "I usually take something to help me sleep. Knocks me right out until morning." He loosened at that, shoulders dropping half an inch. "Perfect. Let him think I'd be unconscious tonight." "Well, I should let you two plan your day," I said, rising to clear the dishes. "I'll probably turn in early. All this family activity's worn me out." "That sounds perfect, Dad," Maya said. "You deserve the rest." Ethan carried plates to the sink and stole a glance toward the stairs, toward my room, calculating, measuring, already moving pieces around in his head. "You know," he said lightly, "I might stay up late and watch some TV in the living room. Bit of a night owl." Of course he was. I smiled and nodded. "Make yourself at home." I rinsed the plates, feeling the day's plan click into place like tools in a lined drawer. Today I'd make a few quiet adjustments, call my banker, text a detective friend from the old days, and switch one small thing about the safe that wouldn't be noticeable until it mattered. I'd photograph the contents, list serial numbers, and move anything essential where he wouldn't think to look. I'd check the exterior locks, replace a bulb by the side door, and lightly dust the closet floor to track which footprints appeared tonight and in what direction they pointed. I would leave the stage exactly the way he expected to find it. The closet gapped 4 inches, the second drawer shade proud, the bedroom door a little ajar. If Ethan believed his midnight search had gone unnoticed, he'd walk straight into the part he'd written for me, the helpless old man who sleeps through everything. Let him keep that script. Tonight, Ethan could play his hand, but I'd be the one counting the cards, and for the first time since they arrived, the house itself seemed to exhale, as if the walls were ready to see how this ends. The remote's on the coffee table. After breakfast, Ethan announced he needed to make a few calls about job prospects. Maya said she'd organize their things in the guest room. That was my opening. "I'll run those errands now," I told them. "You two enjoy the quiet." As I backed down the driveway, I spotted Ethan watching from an upstairs window. Not the guest room, the angle belonged to my bedroom. My hands tightened on the wheel. Tonight couldn't arrive fast enough. The hardware store was my first stop. I needed supplies, and I needed to think through what was coming. Ethan had made his intentions plain over breakfast. Tonight, while I supposedly slept hard with a little help from nighttime pills, he planned to slip into my room, reach for the key he'd clocked weeks ago, and open my safe. Simple, clean, the perfect crime against a trusting old man. Except the key wasn't there anymore. I'd moved it at 5 a.m. after lying awake since his midnight call. The small brass key now sat in my kitchen junk drawer, buried beneath rubber bands and bread ties. He could rake that dresser until his fingerprints wore thin and still come up empty. But that wasn't enough. I wanted him caught, visibly, undeniably, so even Maya couldn't mistake who he really was. In the party supplies aisle, I found what I needed. A palm-size confetti cannon, the spring-loaded kind used for gender reveals. I added a bag of ultra-fine glitter, the cling forever kind, silver and gold. If Ethan wanted to play thief, he could at least look the part. Back home, the house was empty. A note on the counter in Maya's handwriting. Grocery run with Ethan. Back by 2. Love you? Perfect. I had 3 hours. In my basement workshop, I carefully disassembled the cannon. The mechanism was simple: a spring, a plunger, a trigger. I replaced the paper confetti with my glitter blend, enough to coat a face and hands without causing harm. Calibration was the hard part. I needed it to fire only when someone reached into the back of my second drawer, exactly where the key used to live, not from a casual nudge. After several tests with a wooden spoon, I found the sweet spot. Installation required precision. I set the modified device inside the drawer, angled so the trigger would trip when a searching hand reached deep. To a casual glance, the drawer looked ordinary. A few old photos, loose buttons, miscellaneous bits. Reach with intent and surprise. I ran 3 live tests using a ruler to mimic Ethan's motion. Each one launched a shimmering cloud right where an intruder's face and hands would be. The stage was set. Next came the misdirection. Near the front of the drawer, in plain sight, I placed a decoy key, an old luggage key similar enough to fool someone in a hurry. He'd spot it, reach confidently, and trigger my glitter storm. The beauty was psychological. Ethan expected stealth, silence, and speed. He wasn't planning on a bright, clinging signature that marked him like a bank die pack. By 1:45 p.m., everything was ready. The drawer looked innocuous. The trap was armed. Ethan would step into my room tonight expecting a helpless victim and find something closer to 24-karat justice. Car doors thumped in the drive. They were back, probably feeling domestic and normal. He had no idea the crime scene had been converted into a stage. I eased the drawer shut and went downstairs, wearing my best fatherly smile. Tonight would be interesting. I need to pop out for a quick errand, I announced after lunch. Won't be long. Maya looked up from the grocery bags. Need help with anything, Dad? Just picking up something at the electronics store. You two relax. Ethan barely glanced up from his phone, but the flicker in his eyes betrayed interest. The old man running errands alone, leaving the house unguarded. Another data point for his mental map. At Best Buy, the clerk, a helpful kid named Marcus, didn't flinch when I said I wanted a camera for my bedroom. "Lot of break-ins?" he asked. "Something like that," I said. "Small, good night vision, wireless." He showed me options. I chose a compact model with motion detection and an 8-hour battery. Smaller than a deck of cards, magnetic mount included. "Test the placement with the app," Marcus said. "You can see what it sees in real time." I paid cash and drove home. They were watching TV when I walked in, comfortable, ordinary. "Going to rest a few minutes," I said, heading upstairs. "All this running around has me beat." In my room, I closed the door and went to work. The camera needed to capture Ethan's approach to the dresser, his reaction to the drawer, and the glitter burst without being seen. I tried several angles using the app. Top of the bookshelf, wrong line. Behind the lamp, too obvious. Then I found it, nested between books on my nightstand, angled to frame the dresser and most of the room. The magnet held, the black casing blended with the spines. Unless you were hunting, you'd never see it. For 20 minutes, I tweaked the angle through the app until the frame was perfect. Motion sensitivity high enough to wake when someone crossed the threshold, low enough to ignore the house's natural size. Battery life mattered. It needed to last until the moment Ethan made his move, 8 to 10 hours if necessary. I switched to motion-activated mode to conserve power and tested the night vision. The infrared image was crisp. His face would be clear, no matter the light. I ran audio checks too. If he muttered to himself, as desperate people often do, I wanted every word. The setup was simple. He'd enter expecting darkness and silence. Instead, he'd be filmed from the first step. The camera would catch his search, the decoy key, the reaching hand, and the glittered confession that followed, visual, audio, and physical evidence in one neat bundle. I shifted a couple of books to better cloak the camera, then stepped back. The room looked exactly like an old man's bedroom, ready for a peaceful night's sleep. Downstairs, the afternoon slid by with domestic noise. The hum of the dishwasher, a laugh track, Maya talking to her friend about book club. I sat with a crossword and let my pulse slow. Before dinner, I made 2 discreet calls, one to my banker to confirm that any safe deposit access would require me in person, no exceptions. Another to a retired detective I trust, just a friendly, "How's the family?" with a note that I might email him something later. No alarms, just lanes opened. Maya made pasta. Ethan poured wine and asked casual questions about my evening routine. "Planning to turn in early again, James?" I smiled. That's the plan. He tried not to show relief. After we ate, I washed the dishes. Ethan offered to help, then drifted to the living room and lost himself in his phone. Maya packed her tote for book club and kissed my cheek. "Back by 9, she said. I squeezed her hand. "Have fun." Upstairs, I set my bedside glass where it always sits. I laid my reading glasses on the nightstand. I left the closet gapped 4 inches, and the second drawer a shade proud, every cue exactly where he last left it. Then I turned off the light and sat on the bed in the dark, counting breaths, letting the house settle around me. From below, canned laughter rose and fell. At 6:58, Maya's footsteps crossed the hardwood. The front door clicked, then silence. The living room TV switched to a sports channel. The sound lowered. A floorboard in the hall whispered, Ethan was moving. I lay back and closed my eyes. The camera waited. The drawer waited. And I waited, steady as a nail-set flush in seasoned wood. Downstairs, I could hear Maya and Ethan talking quietly, planning their evening, no doubt. Ethan was probably calculating the hours until his theft window opened. He had no idea the window had become a trap door. I checked my phone one final time. The camera feed was clear, the recorder armed, the battery reading full. Everything was ready. Tonight, Ethan would finally show his true colors, and thanks to modern tech, every second would be preserved in crisp detail. Let the games begin. Dinner passed peacefully, Maya chatting about neighborhood changes while Ethan checked his phone too often. I played my part perfectly, the tired father ready for an early bedtime after a busy day. By 8 o'clock, we'd settled in the living room. Maya curled up with a book while I claimed my usual armchair, making a show of rubbing my temples. Long day, I murmured. Think I'll turn in early tonight. Ethan looked up at once. Actually, James, I was hoping we could share a drink first. You know, father-in-law and son bonding time. The suggestion came out of nowhere, and his tone was carefully casual. Too casual. That's sweet, Maya said without looking up. You two should spend more time together. I was thinking about that bottle of Macallan in your kitchen, Ethan continued. Premium stuff, perfect nightcap. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was fascinated. He'd been planning this line since breakfast. The timing, the suggestion, the specific whiskey. Nothing about it was accidental. I appreciate the thought, I said, but I'm on medication that doesn't mix well with alcohol. His smile tightened a hair. Come on, one small glass won't hurt. We're family. Really, I should avoid it entirely. Dad's right, Maya chimed in. The doctor was very clear about his blood pressure meds. Ethan wasn't done. What about just a toast, a tiny sip to celebrate? He groped for a reason, to family. The persistence told me everything. A normal person would accept the first no. Ethan needed me to drink something specific, something that would make sure I slept like a stone. Tell you what, he said, standing. I'll pour myself a glass and we can just talk. No pressure on you. He disappeared into the kitchen before I could object. Cabinets opened, glass clinked. When he came back, he carried 2 tumblers, one with amber liquid, one empty. Changed my mind, he said, settling in. Poured you just a splash for a toast, barely a teaspoon. He held out the second glass. The whiskey caught the lamplight, innocent as tea, but I'd spent 30 years investigating fraud. Desperate people get sloppy. Ethan, I really can't. One tiny sip, he insisted. Maya, tell your dad one sip won't kill him. Maya glanced between us, sensing tension she couldn't place. If Dad says no, respect it. His jaw tightened. For a heartbeat, the mask slid. Frustration, calculation, panic. You know what? I said, rising carefully. I'm more tired than I thought. I'll take one of those sleeping pills and call it a night. Ethan's posture shifted instantly. Sleeping pills? Doctor prescribed them last month, I said. Strong ones. Knock me out completely. I'm dead to the world till morning. Relief washed across his face. That sounds perfect. You need your rest. Sweet dreams, Dad, Maya said, kissing my cheek. See you in the morning. I made a production of climbing the stairs slowly, gripping the rail like an old man worn thin. At the top, I turned. Don't stay up too late, you two. Ethan, help yourself to anything in the kitchen. Thanks, James. Sleep well. In my bedroom, I went through the motions, changing clothes, brushing teeth, turning down the bed, then double-checked the camera's angle and the glitter trap's trigger. I turned off the light and settled on the bed fully dressed, positioned to see the hallway through the door I'd left slightly ajar. Below, the television murmured, voices in hushed tones. Then Maya's tread on the stairs, the guest room door closed. Ethan stayed downstairs, likely watching the clock and calculating how long my pill needed to kick in. I checked my phone, 9:47 p.m. The camera showed my empty bedroom in clean night vision. The trap was set. The stage dressed. All I had to do was wait for my son-in-law to reveal himself. At 2:43 a.m., the first creak sounded on the stairs. I'd lain motionless for hours, breathing slow and even, the phone in my hand showing the feed. Ethan moved like a practiced burglar, avoiding the boards that groan. 3 weeks in my house had taught him its quirks. The hallway plank outside my door whispered, then silence. He was listening, weighing whether the sleep story had landed. I kept my breath steady, deep and regular. This was the performance of my life, with my daughter's future hanging in the balance. The knob turned with glacial care. Ethan's silhouette filled the doorway, backlit by the faint nightlight. He froze, watching my unconscious shape. Satisfied, he slipped inside. He moved with predatory confidence now, convinced he was unseen. In the dim light, his dark clothing swallowed the lines of his body, but I could track him by the shift of shadow and the hush of his steps. He crossed to the dresser with the certainty of a man who had rehearsed every second. His hands reached for the second drawer, the one that had once held the key and now held his reckoning. The drawer slid smoothly. For a heartbeat, his posture broadcast triumph. He'd found his target, reached in, fingers seeking brass he believed would solve everything. The confetti bomb went off. Boom. The sound landed like a party favor crossed with a starter pistol. Silver and gold glitter erupted, bathing him in a shimmering cloud. It clung to hair, skin, and clothes, turning him into a walking disco ball. The pop echoed through the house like celebratory firecrackers. Ethan staggered back, swearing as the glitter rained down on his eyebrows, his lashes, the collar of his hoodie. He looked like a craft store had exploded in his face. "What the?" he hissed, scraping at the air. I performed my awakening on cue, bolting up with groggy alarm and thumbing the lamp. "What on earth?" I called, voice rough. "What was that?" Light flooded the room and froze him in place. There he stood, sparkling from scalp to shoes, clutching the decoy key like a prize. "Ethan," I said, eyes wide with practiced confusion, "what are you doing in my bedroom?" His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Glitter fell from his hair like holiday snow. I heard a noise," he stammered. "Thought someone was breaking in." "Breaking in?" I looked around theatrically. "And you ended up sparkling?" He blinked, weighing lies. "I was checking on you," he tried. "Heard a bang. Must have opened the wrong drawer." "Must have," I said, eyeing the key in his hand. "Odd place to check. Inside my dresser." The dummy key chimed against the wood as his grip failed. From the hall, a latch clicked. Maya's sleepy voice. "Dad, you okay?" "Up here," I said. "Bring your phone." She reached the doorway, stopped and covered her mouth. "Ethan, why are you covered in glitter?" He started a story. I raised a hand. "Before explanations, let's watch." I opened the app. The live feed showed Ethan beside the dresser, sparkling. I scrubbed back a minute. On screen, we watched him slip in, go straight to the second drawer, and reach deep. The replayed blast filled the silence with a metallic snowfall. Maya's face went pale. "Ethan, what were you doing?" "It's not what it looks like. It looks exactly like what it is," I said evenly. "And this isn't the only recording." I set the phone on the nightstand, the loop playing in night vision. "Now," I added, "do we call this a misunderstanding, or do I call it what it is? Choose carefully. The next call decides everything tonight." Ethan looked down at himself, finally realizing the full spectacle. He resembled a rejected Christmas ornament, silver and gold glitter clinging to every inch of him. "There was some kind of trap," he said weakly. "Trap?" I tilted my head, all innocence. "In my bedroom?" From down the hall came the thud of feet hitting the floor. Maya, jolted awake by the blast, was coming to investigate. Ethan's eyes widened with panic. "How do you explain being covered in craft supplies while rifling your father-in-law's things at 3 in the morning? James, what's going on?" Maya's voice carried worry sharpening into alertness. Ethan opened his mouth, desperate, but no believable story arrived. He was caught, glitter-handed, in the act of betraying our family. I allowed myself the smallest smile as her footsteps approached. "Dad, are you okay?" Maya appeared in the doorway, tying her robe in quick, worried motions. She stopped dead, taking in the scene, me sitting up, confused. Ethan beside my open dresser, dusted like he'd been dipped in a craft store. "What in the world?" Maya's voice caught. "Ethan, why do you look like a Christmas decoration?" His mouth opened and closed. Glitter drifted from his hair with each move. "There was a noise," he managed finally. "You came to check on my father at 3 a.m., Maya said, tone sharpening, "and ended up covered in, what even is that, glitter?" "Some kind of security device," Ethan said quickly, brushing at the sparkle. "It went off when I opened the drawer." Maya's eyes flicked from Ethan to the open drawer, then to me. "Dad, do you have security devices in your furniture?" I kept the mask of drowsy confusion. "Not that I know of, sweetheart. I was asleep until that pop woke me." "Then why were you in his dresser, Ethan?" Her voice took on a new edge, protective, suspicious. His story began dissolving. "I was looking for something to help you sleep. You were tossing, and I thought James might have extra sleep aids." "Sleep aids?" Maya's eyebrows lifted. "In his dresser?" I thought maybe. He gestured weakly, sending another cascade to the floor. "Ethan," I said gently, "my medications are in the bathroom cabinet. They always have been." Silence pooled, heavy with implication. Maya's expression hardened. "So let me understand," she said slowly. "You left our bed at 3, came into my father's room while he slept, and opened his private drawer to look for medicine you knew wasn't there?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" she asked. "Because it looks like my husband was going through my father's things in the middle of the night." Desperation crept onto his face. "Maya, you have to understand, I was just trying to help." "Help with what exactly?" I asked mildly. "What did you hope to find?" His eyes darted. He swallowed. I was confused. I thought I heard someone breaking in. "Breaking in?" Maya repeated, flat. "So you decided to search his furniture?" "I wasn't searching." "Then what do you call opening his dresser?" Ethan's glittered hands curled into fists. "Why are you interrogating me like this? I'm your husband." The defensive anger hit Maya like a slap. Trust began to crack. "You're right," she said quietly. "You are my husband, which is why I'm asking why you're standing in my father's bedroom at 3 a.m., coated in glitter, with your hand in his private drawer." Cornered by his own implausible explanations, he faltered. "I can explain everything," he said desperately. "Then please do," Maya said, arms crossed. "Because right now, I'm confused about what my husband was doing in here." I saw the exact moment her instinct shifted, from protecting him to protecting me. Ethan must have seen it too. "Maya, you have to trust me." But trust, once cracked by glitter and lies, doesn't mend easily. Her eyes stayed on him, conclusions forming. "Ethan," she said slowly, "I need the truth right now. What were you really doing in my father's bedroom?" He opened his mouth, but I knew the moment had come. Maya deserved the truth, even if it hurt. "Maya," I said, reaching for my phone, "there's something you need to hear." Ethan's face went the color of ash beneath the shimmer. "James, don't what?" she snapped, razor calm. "Don't what, Ethan?" I pulled up the recording from 2 nights earlier. "Sweetheart, I recorded a call last night. I think you should listen." "No," he cut in, panicked. "Maya, whatever he thinks, be quiet," she said. "Dad, play it." I pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the room, crisp and damning. "Yeah, it's me. Everyone's asleep. The old man's definitely loaded. I found bank statements, investment portfolios, the whole thing. We're talking serious money here." Maya went very still. Her eyes widened as her husband discussed my finances with a stranger. "Tomorrow night, Maya's going to her book club," the recording continued. "She goes every Tuesday, 7 to 9. Perfect timing." "Stop it," Ethan said desperately. "Maya, I can explain." "Shut up," she said, quiet. "Let me listen." "I already have the safe key," the recording went on. "Grabbed it earlier while they were having dinner. The old fool keeps everything in there. Cash, jewelry, more bank info." Maya's hand flew to her mouth. She stared at him like he was a stranger. "Look, I know you're worried about the timeline," the recording continued, "but my gambling debts aren't going away. Those guys aren't patient." "Gambling debts," Maya whispered. "What gambling debts?" On the phone, Ethan's voice kept sawing through the room. "James is just some lonely widower, probably grateful for the company. He has no idea what's coming." I watched my daughter as she heard him belittle me, weigh my vulnerability, and plan how to exploit it. "The beauty is he'll never suspect family," the recording finished. "Even if he notices something missing, Maya will convince him he misplaced it. You know how old people get about memory." She made a sound like she'd been struck. Hearing her husband plot to use her trust to cover a theft from her father did what words never could. It severed denial. Ethan lurched forward. "Maya, please. I was desperate. I didn't mean..." "Didn't mean what?" she asked, eyes bright with furious grief. "Didn't mean to rob my father? Didn't mean to lie to me for weeks? Didn't mean to gamble our lives away?" It was just until I could make it right. "With what?" I asked softly. "My savings?" He sagged. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't unring a bell," Maya said. She straightened. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to step away from that drawer. You're going to sit on the chair by the door. And you're going to keep your hands where we can see them." He hesitated. The glitter made defiance look ridiculous. He moved to the chair and sat. "Maya," I said, "I have video. The camera captured everything." She nodded once. "Good. We'll need it." "Are you calling the police?" Ethan asked, small now. "Yes," Maya said simply. He started to plead, but one look silenced him. She stepped into the hall, phone already dialing, while I watched the man who thought I was an easy mark sparkle under the lamp like a warning flare. Sometimes justice shows up as glitter that refuses to wash off. Ethan's last line from the recording hung in the air. "Trust me, by Thursday we'll be clear. I'll tell Maya we got a job offer in another state, urgent. We'll be gone before the old man knows what hit him." I stopped playback. The silence afterward was deafening. Maya stared at Ethan, tears starting to spill. "Gambling debts?" she whispered. "You were going to rob my father? Love, listen to me. You called him a lonely old fool." Her voice cracked. "You were going to steal from him and disappear, dragging me along as your cover." Ethan took a step toward her. She recoiled like he was radioactive. "How much?" she demanded. "It doesn't matter." "How much?" His shoulders sagged. 47,000. Maya seemed to fold against the doorframe, stunned by the man she'd married. "You've been lying for months," she said, "about the job, the bills, why we needed to move in. I was trying to protect you. By planning to rob my father?" Her voice rose. "By using me as your alibi while you stripped the man who raised me?" "We can work this out," he tried. "No." Maya straightened, something steely settling in her spine. "No, we can't. You targeted my father. You mocked him. You were going to let me believe he was losing his memory while you robbed him." She looked at him with open disgust. "Get out." "Maya, get out of my father's house. Now." For the first time since I'd known him, Ethan had no words. He stood there another 10 seconds, glitter still falling from his hair like tarnished snow. Then, something in Maya's expression, pure protective fury, convinced him the marriage was over. "This isn't finished," he said, voice turning hard. "Half of everything we own is mine. I'll get my share." "You mean half of our debt?" Maya's tone went to ice. "Because that's all we have, Ethan. Debt, gambling debt I never consented to. I'll fight you in court." "With what money?" She took a step closer, not backing down. "You just admitted you owe 47,000 to dangerous people. What exactly are you fighting with?" His bravado crumbled. He looked at me with something close to hatred. "This is your fault, old man. You turned her against me." "No," Maya said, firm. "You did. When you planned a felony instead of asking for help, when you sneered at my dad, when you lied to me over and over." "We're married," he tried again. "We took vows." "You broke them when you plotted to rob my family." She pointed to the hall. "Get your things and go." Ethan finally understood the con was finished. No more manipulation, no more scripts. He left without another word, tracking glitter through my house like a trail of evidence. From the guest room came the angry zip of suitcases and the dull thump of shoes stuffed into bags. Maya sank into the chair by my bed, exhausted. "Dad, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I brought him here. I put you in danger." "You couldn't have known," I said softly. "I should have caught the signs sooner. The calls, his questions about money." She looked at me, eyes shining. "How long have you known?" "Since the night before last," I told her. "I heard that call. I knew I had to protect us both." A thin smile found her mouth. The glitter bomb was brilliant. "I wanted him caught red-handed," I said, "or glitter-handed." She laughed, real laughter, even through tears. Ethan reappeared, 2 lumpy bags in hand, still sparkling like a defeated party favor. "Leave your key on the kitchen counter," Maya said without looking up. "Don't contact me. My lawyer will contact yours." He opened his mouth to argue, then swallowed the impulse. A minute later, the front door slammed. We listened to his car start and vanish into the dark. "Can I stay here?" Maya asked quietly. "Just until I figure things out." "This is your home for as long as you need it," I said. "Always." By morning, we shifted from shock to process. I exported the camera footage to 2 flash drives in the cloud, then sent a copy to my attorney, Margaret Richards. "Document everything," she replied. "You may not need police today, but you want a clean record." We changed the locks before lunch and added transaction alerts at the bank. Maya canceled the joint cards she'd opened with Ethan and drafted a strict budget on a yellow legal pad. We set rules, no shared debts, full transparency, and weekly check-ins for a while. She booked counseling, updated her resume, and promised herself that love would never again replace due diligence. I filed a written statement, archived the video, and printed receipts, because memory fades while paper remembers everything later accurately. 3 months later, I was pouring coffee when Maya came downstairs, ready for her shift at the local library. She'd taken to morning rhythms with a calm precision that made me proud. "Morning, Dad?" "Morning, sweetheart. Sleep all right?" "Like a baby." She poured coffee and sat. "Any regrets about the great glitter trap of March?" Only that I didn't get a close-up of his face when it popped, I said. Her divorce had finalized 2 weeks earlier. Ethan contested nothing. Hard to posture about half of everything when you're staring down potential charges and $47,000 you can't pay. Busy day? I asked. Story time at 10. Then I'm helping Mrs. Patterson with her genealogy. She smiled. I love it there. Quiet, useful, full of people who actually appreciate books. At the door she paused. Thank you, Dad, for protecting me, for handling it cleanly, and for trusting me when it mattered. After she left, I sat with the paper and my coffee. The house felt peaceful in a way it hadn't for months. No tension, no lies, no one casing the crown molding. My phone buzzed, a text from Maya. Forgot to mention, Mrs. Henderson wonders if you'll help her install a security system. Words out about your innovative home protection methods. I laughed out loud. Maybe I should patent the confetti approach to home security. Outside, spring settled over Coeur d'Alene. The neighborhood was its old self, quiet and neighborly. Sometimes justice arrives in court. Sometimes it arrives because you trust your gut, set careful traps, and let people reveal who they are. And sometimes, justice sparkles. If you like this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you.